They were chasing some crazy kind of thrill, so these two British teenagers tricked this transgender kid from their class into believing they were all friends. Then, they lured her out to the woods where it turned brutal. They stabbed her in the back, literally, 28 times to be exact. Cameras around their tiny English town caught them hanging out just before and after it all went down. But what exactly happened to 16-year-old Brianna Ghey in those woods? Welcome to True Crime Recaps. I'm Chris. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Let's recap. For Catherine and Andrew Vise, February 11th, 2023 was shaping up to be a nice, relaxing day at the park. It was a cold day in Culcheth. Culcheth is a cozy little village in Cheshire, England, not too big, with around 11,000 people living there. When the weather's decent, everyone loves to hit the park for some good old long walks. So, there they are, Catherine and Andrew, just walking their dog, when they spot something off in the distance, this young guy kneeling by the top of some wooden steps. It looked like he might have been adjusting his dog's collar or something, but as they got closer, the scene took a dark turn. The teenager was actually hovering over a body, and he wasn't alone. There was this teenage girl with him, and the moment Catherine and her husband tried to step in, both of them bolted. And Catherine, she can only watch as the girl's attackers make their escape across the field. They're not exactly running, but it's not a walk either. Catherine called it a lollop. It's funny how certain details stick out at times like these. She never got a good look at the guy's face, but the girl turned around for just a second and their eyes met. It was one of those looks you never forget, like something straight out of a scary movie. And then, just like that, they disappear. The call to emergency services went out at 3:13. Catherine and Andrew suddenly find themselves in a heart-wrenching situation, trying to comfort a teenager who's slipping away right before their eyes. Andrew was sure he saw a glimmer of life. Her chest seemed to move under her sweatshirt. He got down close and reassured her, "Hang on, we're phoning the police." The paramedics rushed in just 5 minutes later and they pulled out all the stops. But it was too late. The poor girl was too hurt. Her name was Brianna Ghey. By 4:02 p.m., it was all over. She was gone, taken by 28 brutal slashes across her neck, head, back, and stomach. The big question on everyone's mind is why? Was it hate for who she was, a transphobic act of violence, or were Brianna Ghey's killers just twisted by the dark stuff they found online? Brianna was this bright spark, a 16-year-old student at Birchwood Community High School in Warrington, about 8 miles away. She was one of those people who just lit up a room, you know? And yeah, she was also proudly transgender. Life threw some curveballs her way with ADHD, autism, and anxiety all on her plate from a young age. School was a bit of a tough crowd for her, but when it came to TikTok, she was in her element. She became a bit of a beacon for other trans people all over the UK, creating this safe space where everyone could just be themselves. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, there were a couple of other teenagers looking at the world through a very different lens. Scarlett Jenkinson's story starts off pretty picture perfect. Her mom was shaping young minds as a teacher. Her dad was running his own building and plastering company. She was the baby of the family with 3 siblings ahead of her. Growing up, she was all about pony rides and getting dolled up for any fancy occasion. But as the years ticked by, Scarlett started to hit some rough patches. By the time she was 11, anxiety had her in a vice grip. To deal with it, she turned to something drastic, cutting herself. Scarlett had a lot of secrets, although you'd never know it to look at her. She was quiet in class, never gave her parents or teachers too much trouble, but that wasn't the real her. If you knew her like Eddie knew her, you'd find out she was much darker than she seemed. She met Eddie Ratcliffe at school when they were both 11. He was weird, she thought, but she was weird too. Eddie was sandwiched in the middle of his family with a little sister and a big brother. His outlet was kickboxing at his dad's gym. The kid was so good he even represented the UK in the sport. He was the kind of student teachers loved to brag about, smart as a whip, always acing his tests with his eyes set on studying microbiology at university. By 8th grade, Scarlett was calling herself a Satanist and texting Eddie things like, "I'll stab your nan and shag your cat." For her, it was just a laugh. For him, that was just Scarlett. She was all about horror movies, the scarier the better. But after a while, even Freddy Krueger lost his edge for her. She was after something more real. And thanks to the shadowy corners of the dark web, she didn't have to look too hard. Scarlett was deep into some wild stuff online, sending Eddie links to these sites called Red Rooms. Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? They supposedly show real crimes happening live. Creepy stuff. Some say they don't exist. They're just urban legends, but you have to wonder, what if they're real? Scarlett was all in, totally convinced she was watching the real deal unfold right in front of her eyes, and she couldn't get enough of it. It's like the more she watched, the more it started spilling over into her day-to-day life. Fast forward to fall 2022, and Scarlett found herself in major trouble at school. Picture this. Scarlett's out there dealing marijuana gummies in the playground like she's handing out candy on Halloween. All fun and games until one kid takes it too far and ends up in the ER. The kid's folks decide to let it slide, no charges filed, but everyone agreed it was time for Scarlett to move on. She landed at Birchwood High in Warrington. The headmaster knew about the gummy saga, but gave her a shot anyway. Her past teachers vouched for her, saying the whole thing was a one-off and that Scarlett was more or less a safe bet. It was at Birchwood that Scarlett first met Brianna Ghey. Both girls studied in the inclusion room, which offered special one-on-one teaching. They struck up a friendship over makeup. They mostly hung out in the inclusion room since they didn't like socializing with other students. It seemed like a good situation, especially for two girls who didn't have a lot of other friends. But of course, no one had any idea what was happening behind closed doors. Right around the time Scarlett was forced to transfer schools, she and Eddie came up with a crazy idea. What if they killed someone? These two were firing off thousands of really messed up texts to each other on WhatsApp. They spent all their time crafting this sinister blueprint on how they'd go about offing someone. And they had this whole list of potential targets that got them all hyped up. There was one guy they were bad-mouthing as a nonce, a couple of people they tagged as Scarlett's enemies, one kid they thought would be an easy kill, and then there was a guy who was stepping on Eddie's toes with a girl he had a crush on. It was February 2023 when Scarlett moved Brianna to the top of her kill list. Eddie approved with this chilling text. Yeah, it'll be easier, and I want to see if it will scream like a man or a girl. Brianna was less than human to him. It made killing her easier than the other names on Scarlett's list. So here's how they schemed it all up. First, get their target to follow them to this out-of-the-way spot in Linear Park. The idea was Scarlett would keep them busy, maybe chatting or whatever, and while they were distracted, Eddie would sneak up and go for the neck with a knife. Out of everyone they had in mind, Brianna was the one they figured they could trick the easiest. She actually thought Scarlett was on her side, a real friend. That trust ended up costing her everything. Scarlett had it all marked on her calendar. January 27th, 2023 was going to be the day. Brianna was under the impression they were just going to hang out and maybe get high in the park. Eddie was planning to show up with his brand new hunting knife, a souvenir from a family trip to Bulgaria. The plan seemed pretty straightforward. They'd meet Brianna at the bus stop, walk her into the park, and then, well, Eddie was supposed to use that knife on her. Scarlett was pretty hyped up about the whole thing, even texting, "I want to stab her at least once, even if she's dead, just 'cause it's fun, LOL." But as fate would have it, a family dinner meant Brianna had to bail on them that night. She sent a message to Scarlett saying she couldn't make it. After that, Scarlett was a girl obsessed. She kept bringing it up in texts to Eddie, who, from the sounds of it, was starting to get cold feet about their gruesome plans. She'd say, "Let's kill Brianna tomorrow." Eddie would say, "It's a school day." She didn't give it up. "Please, I want it done ASAP." Eddie held his ground. "Can't. It's a school night." Those are the kind of conversations that made police point to Scarlett as the ringleader. Eddie was more like her private hitman. In fact, Scarlett saved his contact as Tesco John Wick. They finally agreed on a new date, Saturday, February 11th. The day before, Scarlett texted Brianna to come and hang out in the park. Eddie met Scarlett near the bus stop. Meanwhile, Brianna was seen on her doorbell cam leaving home for the final time. Cameras catch Brianna again getting on a bus near home. She pays the driver and takes her seat. She's anxious and afraid. She's never ridden the bus alone before. She's texting her mom, who says she's proud Brianna is going out and socializing. As the bus pulls up, you can see Scarlett in red and Eddie in black. Before their names went public, they were simply known as Girl X and Boy Y. Brianna gets off just before 2. She walks away with Scarlett as Eddie follows behind. Other cameras caught the trio walking toward the park. Witnesses remember Brianna very well thanks to her bright white socks and big sweatshirt. At 2:15, Brianna sent Scarlett a text saying, "Girl, I'ma wait where I am until we have drugs, LOL. I'm too anxious." It's a bit of a mystery where exactly Brianna was waiting when she sent that. That's when Scarlett started firing off messages to a fake Snapchat account she whipped up, making it look like she was hashing out a deal for the drugs. Brianna's final message to Scarlett came through at 3:06, just asking, "Girl, where are you?" Then, just 7 minutes after that, Catherine and Andrew Vise are out for a stroll with their dog and stumble on Eddie looming over Brianna's body. Sometime during that 7-minute gap, Brianna was viciously attacked 28 times. Afterwards, Scarlett and Eddie walked casually down the sidewalk as if they didn't just butcher someone. Then Scarlett went home while Eddie hopped on the bus. To cover her tracks, Scarlett whipped up this tale about Brianna flaking on them to hang out with some guy from Manchester. She even sent texts to Brianna's phone like, "Is everything okay? Some teenage girl got killed in Linear Park. Why did you ditch us for some random man from Manchester?" She spun the same yarn to her mom, saying they were supposed to meet up in the park, but Brianna ditched them for this guy she'd met online. Doing what any concerned parent would, her mom dialed the cops straight away. She even passed the phone to Scarlett, who fed the police the same line. By now, Scarlett was in full-on panic mode. She shot Eddie a text to make sure their stories matched. "You're not gonna get caught," she tried to reassure him. "Police are shit here." Couldn't have been more wrong.
Scarlett, listen to what I've got to say.
Yeah.
At this moment, because the information I have received, you are under arrest on suspicion of murder. Obviously you are under caution, so anything you say is getting recorded. Okay?
If me being suspect is because like I was the last person seen her, or how come I'm suspect?
Pardon?
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person that's seen her, is it?
I don't know. All the information I've received is you are a suspect. Okay.
Eddie was arrested soon after.
You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright? You didn't have to say anything, but you may harm you eventually mention when questioned. So you later line in court, and if you do say evidence, do you understand?
Yeah. Unlock these. I can't explain everything.
No, listen.
Right, listen.
Do it all on interview, alright?
Yeah.
You're going to take it to the wrong corner, you'll be interviewed about it, they'll ask you questions, alright?
Yeah.
Scarlett stuck to her guns. The man from Manchester must have killed Brianna. Eddie wasn't so loyal. He told police he walked away to pee. When he came back, he saw Scarlett stabbing Brianna. Back at Eddie's house, they found the hunting knife with Brianna's blood on it. In Scarlett's room, they found handwritten notes detailing exactly how they were going to do it. So, after Eddie got nabbed by the cops, he came down with selective mutism. He would only talk to his mom. When it came time to plead, he wouldn't say a word, just scribbled "not guilty" on a piece of paper and flashed it for everyone to see. Except the only person with Brianna's blood on their clothes was him. Scarlett's clothes were spotless. That, plus the last message Brianna sent, kinda pointed all fingers at Eddie being the one who did the deed. But when it came down to it, the court wasn't splitting hairs over who did the actual stabbing. In their eyes, Scarlett and Eddie were both in it together. In February of 2024, Scarlett and Eddie were sentenced to life in prison. The judge took some pity considering their age and various mental health conditions. She agreed Scarlett was the puppet master and Eddie was her puppet. That's why Scarlett has to serve at least 22 years, while Eddie only has to serve 20. Both will be eligible for parole in the early to mid-2040s. And that's your recap.
Thanks for hanging out with us today.
If you like getting all the crime in half the time, go ahead and tap that subscribe button and the bell so you never miss a story.
We're here Wednesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays, but don't go away. Catch up on more recaps right here, right now.
Until next time, take care.